All right, hello there. I am Ken Stringfellow, musician and person.
Hi, how are you? We are with Ken at the Fotomatón. We're making a pre-listening party, and it was, listen the new record, it was fucking awesome. I was it in Spanish, estábamos con Ken Stringfellow escuchando el disco de una fiesta previa, donde podemos escuchar todo el disco en el Fotomatón y ha sido increíble. First question about the record. We could listen a really interesting world with some songs that are quite different to each other, different kind of strings, guitars, drums, keyboards, piano. What can you tell us about the construction of the songs? How do you create it, and what do you want to tell us with these songs?
Well, one thing I can say is that even though I do albums that have electronic elements and programming and drum machine programming, that on this record I stuck to almost 100% like very much organic instruments, bass, drums, guitar, piano, this kind of thing, and the voice, of course, and strings, because this record is a very, very human journey. It's a very personal, fragile, how we find strength through fragility, how we succeed through failure, how we find ourselves after losing ourselves. It's all those things, all those difficult things that we have to solve in our life emotionally, and I felt that it was best expressed in a very, very human, not programmed way.
Next question is the people that is work with you on the record. You told us with the questions that you work with a lot of people, famous musicians, not famous, but really well players. What can you tell us about the people that was playing with you on this record?
Well, generally, I did almost the whole record myself, but I do have a few people that come in. But most importantly is I worked with some great drummers, especially one, a guy named Steve Gale, who you won't know. I mean, he's not. I don't really know how much he's done on records before this. He's played in lots of bands around Seattle for many years. He's roughly my age, a little bit younger, but he just is one of those guys that's been playing in bands in Seattle, and I mean, he's kind of like an undiscovered gem because he's a fantastic musician, probably one of the most prepared and yet one of the most spontaneous drummers or musicians that I've ever worked with. He's a guy that came into my studio and with a band that I was producing, and I saw he was a great musician, and I started using him on sessions for other artists, and then it was just a natural that he would play on the record. So I really think Steve is like the most important single contributor to the record as far as another musician. Of course, I have Pete Thomas and Bruce Thomas, who were the rhythm section of the Attractions, who are awesome. I mean, my God, they're like one of the best rhythm sections of all time. They're only on one song, however, so it's amazing that they're there, but they're not. I mean, Steve is on more of the songs. I don't want to. Their fame doesn't overshadow his contributions. It's all good. And it kind of goes on from there. I mean, there's a few that maybe in this interview format I will like to have the listener have a surprise, but we'll kind of, those are two good ones. But actually mostly I played all the guitars and I did all the singing, played all the keyboards. There's a little bit of pedal steel, a little bit of strings. Andrew Jocelyn is the string player. He's well known in the Seattle area.
It's an appointment about that. I think one of the best options is to buy the record. I mean, buy it, have it at home, and read.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the easiest way.
Yes.
The last question, I told you it's gonna be a tough one, okay?
Yes.
You're a musician. You are an old school musician. You come from a previous generation.
Several of them.
No, but really good. You are part of a sound. I mean, and you are working with new groups and making music.
Yeah.
And now you see that people don't mind about the stereo, ultrasound. I mean, on the atmosphere, and people don't use now the amplifiers.
Yeah.
People prefer to use Campbell instead, or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the old school kind of music, to create music, to use an organic or real compressor or something like that instead of using one plugin? What do you think about the old school and the new school? Because I feel with your music that is old school, but using new kind of solutions, a new kind of sounds and mixing.
I definitely use plugins on mixing, and it's a generally it is an analog mix, but not the old school kind where you have a big mixing desk with a bunch of channels.
Mm-hmm.
I use, like many people, like I use a summing mixer with no faders. You know, the movements are done in the computer, but they exit through 16, analog outputs. That's it. I think most of the sound, really what you hear, comes from the performances, and I tried to. Really, that's just quite natural, actually. Of course, I use plugins, and of course, like all that stuff. But I don't know. I have high standards for audio, even though I'm not one of these people that can tell you all this technical stuff. Oh, if you have this diode, it resonates at this many hertz. Like, I don't know that stuff. I can't build a piece of equipment. But I have high standards for the results, and I've found a way to mix. I mix on a laptop. The laptop that we were using just now, I mix everything on a laptop that's hooked up to an interface, not even anything fancy, and it's connected to a pretty cheap summing amplifier. I mean, nothing I have is really expensive or fancy, but I can take time. This is what I think ultimately is the deciding factor, is that I can take, it's my stuff, and I can take as much time as I want on a mix and come back to it many, many, many times if I need to. And that flexibility and being able to listen to it in different places and then go make little adjustments, that's really the key. I mean, the gear is wonderful. If you have wonderful gear, it does help. There are some compressors, you put it on something, you go, oh, wow, that's that sound, great. But ultimately, I think patience is a much more powerful tool. Patience and attention.
And knowledge.
Yeah, kind of working knowledge. I've got like my own knowledge about how I've learned to make records my way. I taught myself how to record back in the analog days. I was working on tape machines and stuff like that. I know the principles, but I also know where we need to get to. I mean, if you're listening to your mix and then you play a great mix that you love and you're not there yet, just keep going. I mean, that's it. I think it's possible to do just about anything you can dream of these days.
Yes, with a good, I think with if you can make a good soap if you have got good things for doing the soap. It's not gonna be magic. Thanks out for this small interview.
Yeah,
and
great.
And down you can find the social media part. You can find everything, so you will get notice when the new record is. It's outside. So
follow me on Instagram at Ken Stringfellow. That's the best way to get me, or on Threads or even Twitter. Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.